is friends with his boy.
Yeah.
I swear to fucking God, if he says anything, fuck his shit up, dude.
Oh shit! Hey, why are you Power down! Power it down! Power it the fuck down!
This is a short video called Stabbing Elias, shot for $100, directed, written, and edited by Josh Trank. When he first finished the video, which only took a day to edit, he uploaded it to early YouTube in 2007. Growing tired of watching the view count sit at 0, he shot the link over to a friend on 4chan. In the matter of a day, the video was viewed almost 500,000 times, and Trank was being contacted by major Hollywood film studios. After taking a few meetings and working on a short web series for Spike TV, Trank returned back to his Los Angeles home to work as hard as he could at making his first feature film. He did any work that could provide him with experience or just money. Whether that be cinematography, editing, directing, he tried to create as much as he could. During this time, he worked alongside fellow screenwriter Jeremy Slater, and one night, over some video games and weed, the two came up with an idea that would change Trank's life for the better and the worse. Chronicle, the story of 3 boys who gained telepathic powers from a glowing crystal in the ground, was the next project to tackle. Slater went on to work on something else, while Trank recruited the son of famous director John Landis, Max Landis, via Facebook to work on the script. A month or so later, Landis pitched the script to some producers, and the two were off to the races. But the success of Chronicle wouldn't bring Trank the happiness he desired. He had been putting himself in a competition with some of the biggest directors. From a young age, he declared that if he hadn't made a film by the age of 27, the age Spielberg started work on Jaws, then he would quit. Here he was, 28, the biggest opening weekend for a director at the time, and punching holes through his walls. The feeling of success grew into bitterness and anger. He was offered a directing job at Sony to make their R-rated Venom solo film. He worked with Slater on a treatment for the film for a while, but after feeling like the environment at Sony wasn't very welcome to his creative ideas for the project, he parted ways. He worked on a script for the film adaptation of the game Shadow of the Colossus that went nowhere, but eventually, Trank was offered the directing position on 20th Century Fox's Fantastic Four reboot. He brought writing companion Slater along and they started work. From the writing process, there were clashes. Trank, neither a fan of superhero movies nor the source material of the Fantastic Four comic books, wanted to do something that had never been done before in the movies by telling the story of these teenagers gaining these powers in a depressing, monotone, body horror type of way. While on the other hand, Slater, who was a huge fan of the comics, wanted to make something more in the vein of the Avengers, which had come out earlier that year. The creative collaborations quickly spiraled into anything but, and before he knew it, Trank was controlling all negotiations between Slater and Fox, down to omitting notes the studio was making for the script and only sending in certain versions of Slater's script to the studio, unbeknownst to Slater. He eventually left the project, and Fox hired Simon Kinberg to finish the script with Trank. Trank was dealing with lots of compacting things at the time. A head-to-head working relationship with Miles Teller that made shooting difficult, backlash from moviegoers over the casting of Michael B. Jordan, a black actor, as Johnny Storm, a traditionally white character, and the abrupt death of a dog, which sent him into an emotional spiral. All while this was happening, Trank was still being approached by big studios to work on projects. One of these studios being Disney, and one of those projects being a Star Wars spin-off. He pitched them the idea for a Boba Fett solo film, and in the middle of production on Fantastic Four, Disney announced Josh Trank's Star Wars film. By the time Trank's cut of the Fantastic Four rolled around to be screened for the studio, it was a disaster. The tone that Trank was going for rubbed the studio the wrong way, and there was a major issue. There was no ending. Fox had cut $30 million from the budget while filming in the hopes that they could cobble together an ending in a round of reshoots. Then the reshoots became a disaster. Multiple writers, some of whom Trank never met, were turning in pages to be shot. Actors were put in very noticeable wigs. The house of cards that was the production of the Fantastic Four came toppling down. The film essentially fell into the hands of 20th Century Fox, fully under their creative control. Trank had been pushed out of the process. They really do pay attention to what people are saying on Twitter. They look at that and they say, shit, people are freaked out about how it's not going to be funny, so we need to spend $10 million to do a comedy rewrite. By April of 2015, word on the crumbling Fantastic Four shoot made its way to Disney executives. Due to their lack of confidence in Trank's directing ability, Disney and Trank made the combined decision for him to sit out of that year's Star Wars celebration, where he was set to announce his spin-off film alongside Gareth Edwards, who was working on his own Star Wars spin-off film Rogue One. Trank disguised this mutual agreement to not show up by claiming he had the worst flu of his life on Twitter. A week later, Disney would announce that the company and Trank were both deciding to go separate ways on the project. Trank's reasoning at the time being that he wanted to pursue smaller, more original ideas. Trank later admitted, "I quit because I knew I was going to be fired if I didn't quit. The summer continued with the rollout of the upcoming release of Fantastic Four. Trank attended the conventions and interviews to promote the film, firing back at the criticisms levied at the intense shoot and the news of the reshoots. But when the time came, the night for Fantastic Four to be released, Trank sent out a tweet that would change his trajectory in Hollywood forever. A year ago, I had a fantastic version of this, and it would have received great reviews. You'll probably never see it. That's reality, though. Josh Trank tweeted just hours before the film was set to premiere in cinemas. And from there, the film was torn apart. Reviewers hated it, audiences hated it, Fantastic Four fans hated it. I mean, hell, it even seemed the director hated it. Trank was in a state of limbo where not only did he release a film that everyone seemed to agree is bad, he also decided not to remain silent on the studio interference, possibly putting himself in a position to be essentially blacklisted from Hollywood. Other directors had films released under heavy studio interference, but no director had been so bold as to admit that, especially before the film is even able to be seen by a wider audience. Trank would slip into reclusiveness after the release of Fantastic Four, not doing any interviews, not making any public appearances, and certainly not taking on any new projects right away. It wouldn't be until years later when Josh Trank popped back up with a new film, Capone. Inspired by his extensive research, Trank wrote a script about a decaying mobster who was once a powerful figure in the crime world. He found the right collaborative partner in Tom Hardy, to which the two bonded over art and vaping. Scheduling conflicts would delay the filming of Capone for almost 2 years. Hardy was held up with films like Triple Frontier and Venom, and the budget was beginning to become a problem. On the day the decision was made to delay the film, Josh Trank's assistant, John, recalls the two grabbing dinner at KFC and then stopping at a gas station to grab spoons. When John returned to the car, he found Trank shoveling mashed potatoes in his mouth and sobbing. Times were dark for Trank. But before too long, things picked back up. Capone began filming in 2018 with a stellar cast, the likes of Tom Hardy, Matt Dillon, and Linda Cardellini, with all-stars even in the crew, such as cinematographer Peter Deming, who had worked on amazing films like Mulholland Drive, Twin Peaks, and The Menu, to name a few. Things were going great until the film got in the hands of theatrical and streaming distributors, all of which rejected it. With Trank hoping for either a Sundance or Cannes premiere, things weren't going exactly to plan. Trank kept working with editors to cut the film and reshape it into something studios might be interested in putting out. And one did finally bite. Vertical Entertainment eventually bought the distribution rights to Capone with plans of a theatrical release. That was until coronavirus hit. With most of the world on lockdown, the theatrical release of Capone was canned and it was unceremoniously released on VOD and streaming. The critics didn't go easy on Capone, labeling it lazy, unfocused, and at times unintentionally funny. And although Trank got to make his vision, it doesn't seem to have paid off financially. Trank reportedly took a $40,000 pay cut to direct the film, and I can't imagine the streaming residuals are much. He returned to LA to continue working with a steady pay, being hired to write original scripts and to do rewrites on others. In the time since the release of Capone, Trank has remained pretty quiet. He presumably still works quietly writing and possibly editing in Hollywood, but if his IMDb is anything to go by, he has only one production soon to be in the works, a Theodore Roosevelt biopic. Although Josh Trank's story can be seen as a classic tale of Hollywood chewing someone up and spitting them out when they're no longer profitable, take Spielberg acting like he doesn't know who Josh Trank is in an interview as an example, I think with time, Trank has come to a place where he feels little bitterness about his situation. To me at least, it seems he's very self-aware of where he made mistakes, where he may have been naive, but also he learned the hard way that the amount major corporations will be willing to put up with erratic behavior on and off set lines up perfectly with the amount of money you're making for them. Years out from the project, Trank returned online to make a Letterboxd account. I thought reading through his review of Fantastic Four would be a perfect way to end this. Fan Force Stick. Huh. Okay, first of all, I thought it would be great if I searched Fantastic Four 2015 and the shit wasn't even on here. Low-key, I kinda was hoping it wasn't. But it was, and I'm here. Anyway, where to begin? The movie is alright. I was expecting it to be much worse than it was. I literally haven't seen it since like 2 weeks before it came out, and I was in a heavily fucking traumatized state of mind. Why? Save that for another time. Anyway, movie review. Great cast. Everyone in the film is a great actor. And overall, there is a movie in there somewhere. And that cast deserves to be in that movie. Everyone who worked on Fantastic Four clearly wanted to be making that movie. But ultimately, it wasn't. Did I make that movie they deserve to be in? To be honest, I can't tell. What I can tell is that there are two different movies in one movie competing to be that movie. Is there a hashtag release the Trank cut? Doesn't matter. I'm not Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder is a storied, iconic, legendary filmmaker who has been knocking it out of the fucking park since I was in high school. Me? Then, I was 29 years old, making my second film, in a situation more complicated than anything a second-time filmmaker should have walked into. That said, I don't regret any of it. It's a part of me. And I just hope Peyton Reed makes the next Fantastic Four and crushes it, and that I get a cameo. Anyway, that's it. Fan 4 stick.